Hey guys, it's Jugget82, and this is a video I've been wanting to talk about for a minute now, and it's about Ghostbusters 3. If you guys haven't known, there have been plans to make Ghostbusters 3, and this is basically a vid about my thoughts personally about whether or not Ghostbusters 3 should come out. And personally, I'm all for Ghostbusters 3 to come out, because I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. I have both the VHSs, Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2. And I remember the first time I saw Ghostbusters, I was blown away by the effects, by the comedy. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Ernie Hudson. Funny, funny, funny. The Ghostbusters 1 movie, especially. I did a tribute to the Ghostbusters 1, the first movie, on my channel. And I still have that video on up now. And I think the Ghostbusters franchise in general was one of the best times for me as a kid growing up, and even to this day, I still have an enjoyment out of watching the Ghostbusters cartoon as well as the movies that have come out. And what basically this video boils down to is what I've seen a bunch of videos ranting about Ghostbusters 3, and it's a bunch of things that I've heard. Now, Ghostbusters 3, if you guys didn't know, has really been thought about since probably the late 90s when Dan Aykroyd had wrote a script. Him and Harold Ramis had got together and they wrote a script called Ghostbusters Go to Hell. And it was tweeted on that idea that they would come out with a new movie. Now, Ghostbusters 2 that came out after Ghostbusters 3 was not a bigger blockbuster than the first movie, but yet and still it did okay. But you know, it came out in 1989, and it was between 1989 and 1990. And people didn't really like the story. It seemed like it was more of a rehash of the first movie. And what they didn't get out of that, they decided, I guess, not to make another movie or whatnot. But Dan Aykroyd was all for making a third sequel to Ghostbusters. I mean, Ghostbusters is one of those franchises that deserves at least a third movie. And this is where it also boils down to with Ghostbusters, because there are a bunch of people talking about, well, they're not going to be able to get all the original cast members back. Notably Rick Moranis, who has pretty much retired from really even doing any other movies. I think the last movie he did was an animated movie, and he's like, what I'm saying, he's retired from doing movies. But if you guys know about the Ghostbusters video game, Ernie Hudson, Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, and Bill Murray all pitched in their voices, including Annie Potts, to recur their roles from the movies. Now, that's another thing many people are thinking about Ghostbusters 3 being CGI. Now, this is where I'm going to go in a little bit of a rant phase, because this is what I say about CGI. What the fuck? Do you really need CGI for every damn thing you put out? I'm like this. I remember when movies were about movies, man. Sure, they had their effects, but you don't really have to sit there and throw that shit in every fucking movie you put out. I'm like this. The 80s were the best time for me watching movies, whether it was Back to the Future, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and movies that really just caught your eye. You didn't have to have too much of that, oh, this is amazing bullshit thrown in your face. It was just the fact that you liked the movie. But CGI, as long as we get the original actors' voices, I'm not too much shitting on it. But I would rather see it in a live action movie. I would rather see the original cast in a live action movie. Times have changed, of course. A bunch of the actors have gotten older, but that doesn't mean you couldn't throw in a third movie. Bill Murray still looks like Bill Murray. He just has gray hair, a little hair dye. Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis probably get on the treadmill. You never know. Ernie Hudson still looks the same. He keeps himself up. What can I say? Ghostbusters 3, to me, should not be a CGI movie. Now, there's another thing that many fans are talking about, whether or not Bill Murray will be killed off like 15 minutes into the movie as Peter Venkman in the movie. And I think that's a really shit, foul thing to do, because I want to see all the Ghostbusters intact in the movie, chopping the ghost up, doing what they do, blasting the ghosts, knocking them out, doing their thing. I don't want to see one of my favorite Ghostbusters, any of my favorite Ghostbusters, getting killed off 15 minutes into a movie to return later as a ghost. That plot really doesn't make any sense. Many people also have been talking about the Office, people coming in, doing their little thing. Now, I don't have anything against anyone that works with The Office, the show that comes on NBC. I really don't know too much about the show. Only thing I know is that Steve Carell in the 40-year-old version was a great movie. But Ghostbusters 3, I've also heard about Ben Stiller, Eddie Murphy, basically a whole different cast of guys being thrown in to replace the original Ghostbusters. And I would like to just say that right there is a fuckload of shit and a shitload of fuck, if I can use the AVGN parody right there. Because, first of all, the Ghostbusters to me will always be Bill Murray, will always be Dan Aykroyd, will always be Harold Ramis and Ernie Hudson. Period. So throwing in replacements really doesn't make any sense. Then they've also said the idea of having Bill Murray just make a cameo in the movie. Now, if you guys remember a movie called Evolution that came out in 1999 that starred David Duchovny, it was kind of like a Ghostbusters 3 movie, but it changed it. It was also directed by Ivan Reitman, who directed the Ghostbusters movies as well. And it was kind of like, instead of ghost, it was alien species and all that. And that was kind of like a third movie in a sense. They were building off, hopefully, the success of that movie to probably get the propaganda to build up to make the third movie. But unfortunately, that movie didn't do too good. Well, for me, like I say, guys, I hope that if Ghostbusters 3 comes out, it's a live action movie with the original Ghostbusters. And it's, something that we'll all remember. And it'll be, kind of like the finalization. Because it seems like a third movie is what will finalize a movie. You had Back to the Future all the way to Back to the Future 3, and you've had so many movies that ended off 3. And Ghostbusters should have had a third movie, but like I say, it's in production right now as we speak, and I just hope that they do this thing right. But this is Jughead 82 signing off.